Welcome to the Voices of East Texas. Today, we will sit down with someone whose life spans nearly a full century of East Texas history. Someone who has seen communities grow, change, and hold on to what matters most. From wartime service to years spending teaching, preaching, and mentoring, his story is woven into the fabric of the places he calls home. We are honored to have him with us today. Doc, would you like to introduce yourself to our listeners?
Thomas Crow. I'm 100 years old. I turned 100 last March, and I've lived in Ruskin, Panola County practically all that time.
No way.
Yes, I've lived in Rusk County 70 years and Panola County 30 years.
Wow.
And so I guess I'm a native of I'm mostly in rural parts where I live. And I've lived in both Carthage and Henderson a little while, but most of the time I've lived in rural areas. But I have seen the changes that took place, in both Carthage and Henderson.
In both places.
Mostly Henderson because I've been there longer. But that's about all I know. Like I said, I'm a strictly rural. I've lived in rural areas, or even while I lived in town, I had like a large garden and farms that were cows on it.
What's your favorite part? What's your favorite part of living in a rural area?
I enjoy the freedom. You choose what you're what you're doing, and you have opportunities to do things on your own, to try new things and all. So that's part of it.
Yes. What is your favorite memory as a child?
I suppose it's I was reared on a cotton farm, and so the probably the favorite memories is at night when the whole family would get together, and we'd be around the fireplace, and everybody'd be there at the end of the day, and they'd kind of recount what happened that day, and all. It was back when I was small.
That's some special times together. That's a special memory. Do you get to have that with the family now?
Well, I'm blessed by my daughter lives next door, and my grandson and his family live in my house, and I've got to live in a little house out back, and I get to see them quite often. And
That's special.
Interaction with the family is it's a blessing a lot of people don't have, and I'm
Yes.
grateful for that because I get to see them. And that little boy that is over the end there is kind of brightens up the day. Yeah.
Yes, he definitely, I'm sure, keeps you busy.
Yeah.
As he interjects and says, "Yep." So I heard through the grapevine that you used to be a teacher.
Yes.
Did you teach in Henderson?
No, I never did teach in Henderson. I taught 18 years in Carthage and 12 years in Beckville. And
Wow.
then I taught GIs after World War II. I taught 2.5 years agriculture, and I taught vocational agriculture 2 years at Menden, which is a little school near Henderson. And that's pretty well the sum of my teaching. I taught 34 years, I think.
So as a future teacher, what kind of advice do you have for me?
Well, teaching has changed a lot over the years, and I'm sure it's been a long time since I was in the classroom.
Your advice is priceless.
I retired in 1985, so I've been retired. I I asked the Lord for 10 years in 1985. I said, if I have 10 years, I wanted to get back on the farm, and I was privileged to buy my brother's part of my father's farm
Yeah.
and moved back on and built a new house on it and rebuilt all the fences and reworked all the pastures and all
Back to its glory.
and I got the 10 years passed, and although I've had a number of health problems, I got over all of them.
That's good.
So I'm blessed that way. So it's been now I've been retired longer than I worked to talk. So I feel kind of guilty sometimes getting that teacher's retirement from but it's been so long since I've taught.
But it's well deserved. It's well deserved.
I was fortunate in my teaching. Like I said, I grew up on a cotton farm, and I wanted to do something that was more productive than that. But it was a hard life, but I enjoyed it, but there just wasn't much income there. So I went to college and I took 2 years of pre-engineering. I was going to make an engineer.
Wow.
Well, when I went into the Navy for 2 years, and I saw I didn't want to live. I wanted to live in East Texas. I wanted to live back in Rusk County, you know,
Yes.
as close as I could get. So I changed from engineering to vocational agriculture. And so I went back and got my bachelor's, doctor's degree, not bachelor's and master's in agriculture. And I taught agriculture 5 years.
Wow.
And then I decided that I wanted to pastor churches. And so I surrendered to preach. And I was going to preach until I got me a full-time church. Well, the years passed. I never did get a full-time. I pastored a number of small churches on the weekend. And like I said, I taught math and science at Beckville. All the math and all the science rotating. And after 12 years, I decided I had too many different subjects. In the 60s, teaching subjects, particularly in the high school, changed quite a bit. It got a lot more involved. So I wanted to cut down on the number of classes. So I got a job at West Rusk teaching chemistry and physics. And I taught a couple of math classes, but I was teaching chemistry and physics. Well, the first year I was there, Carthage, which wouldn't hire a Beckville teacher because they were neighboring for a long time. They will now, but at that time they wouldn't. They lost their chemistry teacher. And I was contacted about taking that job. And so I took that job, teaching chemistry. And in 2 or 3 years, I got exactly what I wanted. I taught chemistry, physics, and calculus. And that was the easiest subjects to teach because you get real good students. Most of my students to go to college. Now, when I was at Beckville, at one time I had 5 former students at A&M studying engineering. I had taught them all their science and all their math. And the fact that they were able to compete down there, you know, was very satisfying.
That is special.
And then at Carthage, working with, like I said, it took 2 or 3 years, but I got on the good side of the principal, and he got me in the classes I wanted, you know. So I taught that the rest of my career. I sponsored the Jets Club, which is 11. But I lived in Carthage 17 of those 18 years. And I lived in Beckville all 12. Beckville was an incorporated town, but it's just a little bitty town, about 800 people, you know.
Wow.
And so it was, like I said, it was like living in the country.
Yeah.
And all of that time, I had a, I always had a big garden.
Yeah.
Had a had a few cows. I had land leased for years. I finally was able to buy some, and kept cows. And I was rural oriented, kind of, you know.
Yeah.
As far as the towns were concerned, I was never involved a great deal in the town, but I did see the changes that took place. You know, when it went from when I was a child. Uh, uh, we would go to Henderson maybe once a month, you know, and the only places we went uh, to was a grocery store. In my childhood, Henderson was everything was locally owned,
Yeah.
and the drug stores. There was lots of drug stores, lots of grocery stores, and clothing stores, but they were all locally owned.
Mm.
Well, as time passed, they began to be owned by
Big corporations.
corporations, and so eventually all that changed. And I guess the biggest change I saw in Henderson was after World War II, when the town began to spread out. Instead of all the businesses being in what we call the square, the little downtown area, they began to be further out. I always credited that people began to have automobiles where they could travel, because for a long time they had to live close where they could walk to the various businesses and all. And so the businesses all scattered out, and they all began to be owned other places. Like, and we had the chain grocery stores. We had several of those, and same way with clothing stores and drug stores. Town, uh, important part of town to me as a child, you know, there's so many drugstores with the soda fountains. The soda fountains are important. And then the grocery stores that was the place we went. Most people uh, that were farming had to buy their groceries on a credit, because they just got paid once a year when they sold the garden. And so they had to establish credit somewhere. So you had a grocery store that you bought groceries. And instead of going in and picking up your groceries, you carried a list in. The groceries were all in the back of the store, and there's a counter out in the front. And you went in and gave the list to the clerks, and they went back and got your groceries and brought them out and set them on the counter. And then they wrote down on a little ticket everything you bought. And of course, in the fall of the year, when they sold the cotton,
harvest was
my
done.
father would go in and pay off his former debt there.
Yes.
And that was kind of the way things went. We didn't really do much business at other stores,
Right.
because
There wasn't much.
there just wasn't any money
Yeah.
circulating by rural people, and there wasn't many jobs available for other people. But there's a great change after World War II, when first of all, other stores moved into town. You know, everything had clothing stores. Of course, the biggest change at all when Walmart finally showed up. That put a lot of these stores that had moved in out of business.
Yes.
You know, construction, like lumber yards and all everything. Walmart put a lot of them out of business.
Yeah.
And the out of town owners changed the complexion of the town some, because before that happened, there were a few people that pretty well run things. You know, there's just a few families, and people kind of look to them for guidance.
Right.
What what to do.
What to do.
And I think the towns still have a limited, but that's limited a lot more than it was
Mm-hmm.
back when I was younger, because well, the out of town owned stores, you don't have very little control over them, you
Yeah.
know, so it makes a difference. So, uh, the scattering of the businesses, it all moved.
Right. So there was this big shift during the war. How did the war affect your family and the family business and the farm and
Well, everybody got drafted, of course,
mm-hmm.
and I was, I think, 14 when the war started, but I got uh, drafted and spent 2 years in the Navy at the end of the war.
Towards the end?
Uh, and I had just had one brother, and he got drafted too. And so my parents had started running a dairy, a small dairy, in order to make enough. I accused my dad to run that dairy to make enough so he could grow cotton. He loved growing cotton, but it didn't pay very well for a small
Yeah.
operator. So he, back then, family dairies were about 24 cows that were small. And we milked, of course, by hand. And
24 cows
so
by
there were four of us. Now, when I was small, my mother and dad had to milk for just the two of them.
yeah.
But as soon as my brother and I got big enough, I'd say 7 or 8 years old,
Right.
we'd start milking too, also. And then we'd all four milk. And like I said, we had about 24 cows, so a little more, a little less. That went on until after the war. And when I came back from the Navy, milking machines had gotten quite popular.
Mm.
And I tried to talk my dad into buying milking machines, but he said use for it. So my mother was in favor of it. So I told
He was
her,
the brains of the crew.
I would buy the milking machines and install them, and see if he would take to it.
Take to it.
And I did, and the first day was a disaster. We couldn't get them to work, and he said, "Get rid of them things and get your bucket and milk each cow." But it took us about a week before we got it started, and within a month's time, he was milking by himself with those milking machines. And he wouldn't, and he learned all about it, you know, and he wouldn't take for them. And that was a great aid. And
Yes.
it was just him and my mother was there by then. But as long as I moved to Beckville, I was teaching school over there. But when they had an out of town death or something and had to, I'd go home and milk. I was close enough associated with them that the cows knew me. Now, back when you just have a few cows, they learn you,
Yeah.
and they react to a stranger coming in. A stranger could walk up and say something, and they'd kick the machines off. You know, they were accustomed just to a few people, but it's not that way anymore. They tell me, but anyway, I would go and milk them if they had to. It seldom happened, but once in a while it did. But that's kind of, I was always, my mother would call me and say that your daddy's got hay in when they was baling square bale. So they got hay on the ground and it's coming up, it's going to come up a rain. And so I'd head over there, and when my son got old, I'd carry him with me and just, to get the hay in for him.
Yeah.
We was always closely associated. I was closely associated with my family. So
Yeah.
I've
That's
been
beautiful.
blessed by having a good family and seen a lot of changes. But
Yes.
things have gotten a lot better in a lot of ways. I think town, the biggest change I've wanted to see me is when business started staying open on Sundays. It was a big part of my life. On Sundays, everything shut down
Yes.
except cafes, restaurants, and one of the drugstores would stay open each Sunday. The drugstores were rotated, but then gradually all the stores would
Started
stay
staying
open
open.
on Sunday, and business continued on Sunday. That was quite a bit of change. I know there's other. We used to know all the clerks in all the stores because the same people are there
Same
all the
people.
time. But that changed now. Just even in a small town like Henderson, don't know anybody much anymore. So that's changed up a good bit. But the main thing is it's scattering out.
Yes, it's getting bigger.
Yeah, bigger.
It's getting bigger, and they're spreading out.
The residential areas hadn't changed that much, other than for a long time people tried to live as close to the business as they could back before everybody had a car.
Yeah.
It's hard to imagine, but for a long time, most people didn't have a car.
I didn't have a car for the longest time. I lived in a big city where I didn't need one.
There was a little grocery store on every crossroads, during much of my early life. We were fortunate. My father said that in the 20s, he made a good cotton crop every year and did well. And he never made another good one. In the 30s and the 40s, he never made a good one. And then in the 40s, he quit growing cotton and started working for the county on the road. But he said that those 10 years was that much difference.
Yeah.
And the bad part of it was, at the end of the first 10 years, he borrowed money and built a house. And he had a very difficult time paying.
Yes.
Because interest was standard 10%, it was not. Fortunately, the people he borrowed the money from, they never did push anybody to pay. In several years, all he do was pay the interest. He couldn't pay anything on the principal.
Yeah.
And just having income once a year.
Yeah, once a season, once a year,
So
towards harvest.
But that's kind of the way it was. And as old as I've gotten now, I don't do much but sit around and think of the past. I remember a lot of things that happened. There were 7 of us boys within 2 years. There's 2 and 3 families.
Okay.
And then 1 in the 4th family. We were all within 2 years age. And we played together as children.
Yeah.
And we kind of run together as we got older, and all. And I said, we grew up on Jarvis Creek there, and stayed in touch till after the war. And then, of course, it scattered
about.
In the war. And
so I heard that you've got some questions, that you've picked out some questions there that you've got in your hand. Is there something on the list of questions that I sent you that you would like to really answer and talk about?
Well, not particularly. I thought about I looked over the list real carefully.
There were a lot of questions on there.
A lot of questions on there. A lot of them hard to answer.
Yeah.
But there's been a lot of changes, and a lot of things have stayed the same. And
what has stayed the same?
I think the small town, being people are more apt to help one another. Like if you have car trouble,
yes,
stop and see what's wrong.
What's wrong?
If you need help anyway.
I have seen that small towns rally and help one another when the occasion arises. That's something that's very unique to East Texas. I think that kindness is very special and unique to East Texas. I don't think I've seen that in many places. And I've lived up north for a long time. And I don't ever remember experiencing the kind of generosity and kindness that's here, especially with this project.
I was not expecting the outpour of support and kindness to come from the East Texas community, but as soon as I put the word out that I needed volunteers for this project, everybody was coming out in waves of support and waves of support of for you to tell your story.
Well, it's it's
It's something special.
uh, like I said, I enjoy living in Rush County and Panola County both. I would probably have stayed in Panola County if I hadn't got the opportunity to get my daddy's farm.
Farm.
Most most of the time I spent away was at the Navy, and then when I was going away to school, I saw I didn't want to live in a big town.
Yeah, you have that experience.
I went to school in Fort Worth and Houston both, and I did both live, and then I was in the Navy in several towns. And I wanted to be in, got back to Rush County,
Come back home.
and when I came back home and decided, I was real close to my vocational aid teacher in high school,
Mhm.
and that was probably one reason I decided I was wanting something to make a living, and so that's I started. He, by the way, became the head of the veterans program after the
Wow.
war. You know, he had the veteran,
Mhm.
so he found out I was taking me. He sent word, you know, when I graduated, to let him know he'd hire me, and he did. I sent word. I didn't go to see him. I sent word I'm graduating, so and so. So he told me when to start. It's not a part of this, but it's not the part.
Yeah.
I graduated, and my the dean that was my advisor got me and him got crossways on one course. I made a mistake, but I like one course, uh, having all, and I couldn't get I needed a technical agriculture course,
Mhm.
and I couldn't get it was in the summer, and I couldn't get one that I hadn't already had, you know.
Yeah.
And
Been there.
they
I've
would
had that experience.
they would let you count agriculture education in some cases.
Mhm.
So I went and got permission to count an agriculture education, but I made a terrible mistake.
Uh-oh.
I didn't have them write it down and sign it. And so when I had already graduated and had been working several months, and the dean notified me that I had like one course being through. And I went out and talked to him. Well, he hadn't heard anything about that. So he wasn't going to give me a credit, so I'd still like one course. And in fact, I had 3 or 4 meetings with him, and all the time I was working.
Yeah.
And among the other things, he told me that I was going to have to pay back all the money that I had drawn working, and then the discussion became somewhat heated. And he said, "You will never teach agriculture in the state of Texas." And so I was in somewhat of a problem. Needless to say, uh, you know, my boss was a good friend.
Yes.
He said, but said you've got to get his approval.
Yeah.
Said I can't keep paying you.
Yeah.
He's not worried about collecting what you've already paid, but said I can't keep paying.
Right.
So I went back in one, last desperate effort. What are you going to tell him?
Yeah.
And I've told him everything I could think of, and he finally agreed to call in the man that had approved me to take that agriculture education. And he came in, he had no recollection of it.
No way.
And so he said, well, you explain to him what our situation is.
Mhm.
And I began explaining to him. He said, wait a minute. Did you graduated in January? I said, yeah, I graduated in January. This is about July by then, you know. I'd been working all that time. And he said, well, that's different. He reversed himself. But what I think reversed him, I says, Mr. Benton, I've got 9 months left on my GFL. Can you keep me from getting qualified by going to A&M? He said, no. I said, well, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to qualify. He had told me I would never teach. And I think that's what, anyway, that has nothing to do with our
No, but it's a lovely story.
I get started talking about the past, though, and I get, you know, anyway, but he approved me. Well, I was working on my master's, and all I liked was my supervisor. I did a supervised research instead of a thesis.
Mm-hmm.
And that was all I liked, but I had to get his approval for it.
Wow.
And needless to say, with very misgivings, I went in to see him about that. He never mentioned anything. He just signed off on everything, just went through.
Wow.
Very strange.
That is so strange.
Very strange. But you get me started talking about the past. So I don't know what it was.
That's our favorite. What's your favorite memory of being part of the Navy? Because that's something special. I have a family that has a very heavy military background, and my husband has been a police officer this is his 26th year of being a police officer here in East Texas. So service runs deep in our family. So tell us, what was your favorite part of being part of the
I don't
service?
know. It's just, what just comes to mind offhand. I joined the Navy Air Corps,
Mhm.
volunteered to get in the Navy Air Corps. I'm afraid of heights. I don't know why I joined. But at any rate, they were going to send you to, it was called a V-12. There was a program for 8 months. Well, I went, and the 6th day I was in the Navy, I had acute appendicitis.
Oh,
And
goodness.
they rushed me out to a Marine camp and operated on me. And they told me I had one of the 3 best surgeons in the United States because he was in the Navy at that time. At any rate, I got to, I was in this, and so I had to miss some school for that. And so they gave me another 4 months. I said, well, by the time that was up, the war had already ended.
Mm-hmm.
And they wasn't training anymore. I don't know where the war ended. It was nearly over. And they wasn't training any more pilots in the war. And so they gave us a choice. We could go to pre-flight, where they said you will be washed out instead back in the Navy, or you can go to one more deal on the college. Well, I decided to get out. And so I got out and went to the regular Navy. And what I was going to tell about it, while I was in college there, we had a thief among us that stole money mostly. But he would not ever take your last dollar. In fact, if you didn't have a dollar, he'd take it like we didn't have much money, but he'd take you $10 and leave $1 in your billfold. Well, our commander was an ex-college teacher that he was going to figure that guy out. And so he would get us out at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning and quiz us and all, trying to find out who that was.
Who it
But
was.
he never did find it. So one time they put some sort of powder on the money and left it, so that the guy got the money. Lord is the wrong guy. And so the guy that had got the money handled it, put us all out and had hand inspection. Well, this guy's hands was clean as it could be, you know. Well, what do I have? Well, wash them in Clorox. so, you know, he got his own money.
Yeah.
Well, what I was going to tell was the group that went to pre-flight. I saw one of them later. He says the thief went with us. he continued to steal it, you know, steal money like that. But,
So he was never going to catch him because he already took off.
well, anyway, it had some experiences, but I was fortunate. Like I said, I was got put on a ship, and we got out about 2 days in the ocean,
Mm-hmm.
and now the war was over by this time, and we were going to Japan. It was transport.
Mm-hmm.
USS Missoula, APA 211, and I guess you'd say the motor died, the engine quit,
Oh, good.
and the war was over. And so they sent tugs out, and they pulled us back into
Fort.
and we decommissioned that ship,
Wow.
which meant we stored all parts, you know, and spent,
Mm-hmm.
and I was disappointed. I wanted to go to Japan. I wasn't looking forward to coming back with all those troops. But, yeah, but that was pretty much the extent of my. I was Vallejo, California, and that's about it.
Well, thank you.
Well, I don't expect that much help, but
You have been a fantastic help.
I can talk about the past. It may not interest anybody but me, but I burden my family with it.
You can tell us
My
anytime
father
about the
lived to be
past.
91. Unfortunately, he was in World War One. He got gassed in World War One. And his last years of life, his lungs played out on him. He couldn't do anything. He was sit around, but I said I saw him sit around all for several years. But I'm getting so that's about all I want to do. There, just sit around. I still do it. Well, I mow the yard, and
You still mow the
I
yard?
got to let mowing the yard is easy now. You know, back when I was little, my mother finally got a push mower,
Mm-hmm.
a rotary, you know.
Yep, it's got the.
Push it.
Yep.
The only trouble that it wouldn't cut weeds, you know. Well, we didn't have weed trimmers now, so you had to cut that weed something. Well, they got the gas mowers, and that was a big help, but you still had to push them.
Mm-hmm.
And then they got to pull themselves, and that's well, we got riding mowers. Riding mowers are fine, but there's a lot of trees, and it's hard to guide around that. Well, I was in the mower shop one day, and the fellow said, "You got more?" You know, he wanted to sell me. You know, it was said, "It'll cut your mowing time in half." Well, I didn't believe it. In fact, I didn't buy it. It was about a year before I bought one, but it's when they come out with the zero turns. Zero turn makes mowing. It's almost a pleasure. They accused me of liking to mow. So I mow my yard and my daughter's yard too. Once you get started, you might as well keep going. And that part's got. I've seen a lot of things get easy. I grew up pulling a crosscut saw, you know, me on one side of it, and my dad on the other side. When we were small, we had to cut wood to heat the house and to cook with, and so my dad would go to the wood, and I would help him saw off one block. Then my brother would help him saw off a block, and we'd do that.
Take turns.
Then get the wood, and then splitting it. And during much of my time teaching school, I had a fireplace, And when chainsaws would come along, I'd cut the wood at the fireplace, but I split the wood with
Axes.
and a wedge. I said it was the best thing if you had a frustrating day at school, and you said get out there with that
axe and yep.
Work out your frustrations. You know.
That I will take that advice home with me.
Now, eventually, after I retired, I bought a wood splitter, and that took almost as much as the zero-turn mower, but not as much. But it made it a lot easier.
A lot easier. I hear that you have a garden.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Charlie and Amber work half of it now. I had a good-sized garden, and they moved over there. They work half of it, and I work half of it. They go soon get it all. And
so, what's in your garden?
Well, normally I don't grow a lot of different things, but I grow onions and and orange potatoes and corn, and then I grow 2 kinds of peas. I grow watermelons, cantaloupe, and squash, peppers, and I don't know what else. I used to grow a lot more than I do now. I used to grow peanuts.
So back in the day, they used to have Allison might correct me if I'm wrong. It was like the Victory Gardens. Did you plan your garden kind of something similar? Because the government was putting out the Victory Gardens during war times to help sustain families during times of crisis.
My parents always had a garden,
and
I kind of modeled mine after
off of them,
what they did, and they grew more stuff because back then you had to grow more of your stuff you ate. And I narrowed it down.
Down to your favorite.
I had this thing about my garden. My last, the last 18 years when I was teaching at Carthage, my garden was out at my farm, and farmers kept eating up everything. Squirrels would eat the corn, and the crows would eat the watermelons and whatnot. And I had a constant battle trying to keep them out. I devised various ways. I discovered read somewhere on the corn, you plant your corn and then have 3 rows all the way around it that you don't plant until 2 weeks later. And then 2 or 3 weeks after that, you plant this outside of it. And then when it gets ready to harvest, you harvest it. Well, the outside hadn't been not ready yet, so the squirrels don't bother it.
Right.
And so I managed to
keep them at bay.
Going that way. The watermelons, crows would pick them. Now, when I was a boy growing up, we call it stringing. We put poles up higher in your head.
Okay.
And put strings from one pole to another.
Okay.
And circle the field. And then put 1 or 2 across. And the crows wouldn't go under those strings. But sometime during the time I was not growing a garden, they learned to get in when they go under those strings. That wouldn't work. So
they got smart on you.
So I started. I first took a feed sack and put the watermelon in a feed sack when it got about half grown. But sometimes crows would go into those feed sacks. Well, I eventually took rough lumber and built a little box about 2 feet long and about 1 foot wide and about 1 foot deep. And I put screen wire across the top of it. And I put that over my watermelons, and they worked fine. And I did that for years and years until I moved over to where I am now. I've been retired 40 years, so where I'm now. Well, I grew my watermelons at the house. The crows don't come to the house. Well, something happened, and my watermelons got so they wouldn't grow. They would they'd start blooming, but it took some disease, and I had access to the county agents.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I read everything I could find. I could not find anything, what caused them. They just kind of wither down and wouldn't make. Well, I moved my garden over to the back of the place, but I had the crows to contend with again over there. So I began building my boxes again, and I used those boxes and did that a few years. And one year, a watermelon came up volunteer in the garden, and it didn't take that disease. And so for 4 or 5 years, I grew them back at the house. Then they had that disease again, and I went back to the place. Well, it quit again. It's back. I'm growing at the house again now.
No longer have to fight with the crows.
The best description is in New Mexico. They have a disease there that resembles what
you're seeing,
but
you have yet to figure it out.
I put everything you can think of as far as chemicals trying to treat, but nothing new. But that's just
well, maybe one of our listeners might have a suggestion for your.
What it was it's some disease. People grow a lot of watermelons in Rusk County. Or used to. They don't know more. Well,
thank you, Doc. Thank you for coming and sharing your story with us. And thank you to your granddaughter and your great-grandson for bringing you all the way out here to UT to spend time with us this morning. It was wonderful to hear all your stories.
And I didn't plan to stay here this long, but
no, we're so glad to have you.
Here, not the blessing of having that little one over there, to help. And there, like I said, I got my daughter right down the road a little piece, and then there in the house up there. And for an old man, that's about the biggest blessing you could have, is have your family close by.
Yes.
As good a health as I had, it's good compared to what my father went through.
Yes.
But having the family there is biggest blessing.
The biggest blessing, and the zero turn.
I thought when I moved the little house in, I said 2 years at most I'll be there, but I think I've been there now 4 years. So
well, the smallest one is keeping you young.
Yeah, awesome. He does some direction, all right. Let's go get on the 4-wheeler.
Yes, you and Granddad are best friends, huh? I see it.
This morning, before lunch.
Here, come here. Come over here. You could say it right here. So then everybody can hear your story about you and Granddad.
Alex wants to tell the story something.
All right,
Me and him played baseball for a little bit.
You guys play baseball? That's awesome. What other things do you do with your granddad that are like your favorite things to do?
Go to the pond.
You go fishing?
No.
No, just hang out?
Yeah.
That's cool. Do you go in the garden with him?
Okay. Sometimes. Well, only when he's working early.
Well, thanks for bringing your granddad out to us. It was wonderful to hear all of his stories. I'm sure you hear them all the time.
well, I'll take up all your time.
No, you didn't. Thank you. And thank you to our listeners today for listening to Doc share his story with us.
Thank you for joining me on this episode of the Voices of East Texas. Stories like the one we heard today remind us that history isn't just found in books. It lives in the voices of the people who have experienced it. Through a lifetime of change, challenge, and community, we're able to see how the past continues to shape the present in ways we might otherwise overlook. It's a privilege to help preserve these stories. stories that might have gone untold, but instead have become part of a shared memory we can all carry forward. If this conversation meant something to you, or if it reminded you of someone whose story should be told, I'd love to hear from you. These voices are what make this project possible. Until next time, I'm Elena. Thank you for listening.